I rage quit every book that I do. Thank you, my editor, for not letting me quit before I finish a book. Hi, my name is Svetlana Chmakova, and I am a graphic novel author. I've done a series called The Berrybrook Middle School and a series called The Weird Books. First volume was Be Wary of the Silent Woods, and I am here to talk about the second volume that's coming out very shortly. So I'm here to talk about my latest book, which is a second volume of this series, The Weird Books. The first volume was called Be Wary of the Silent Woods and introduces the main characters of the world, Naya, Ailish, and all their friends. And the second volume is due out in October, and it's what I've been working on for the last 2 years, the longest 2 years. And you'd think, after having worked on writing graphic novels for over 2 decades, it would get easier. It does not. My writing is usually inspired by whatever 12, 13-year-old Svet was into. And I loved all things. I loved slice of life. I loved science fiction. I loved fantasy with dragons. I had discovered Anne McCaffrey and the Dragon Riders of Pern around that age, and I was consumed by that whole world. Also, Lord of the Rings. And what inspires me these days, in addition to what burned in my soul when I was a tween and early teen, is the desire to explain to a 13, 12-year-old Svetlana certain things about humanity and people and how people treat each other and what drives it. I am almost 45 and I have figured some things out, and I would like to explain them to myself as I was back then. So that's probably my biggest inspiration for doing this work, which is a lot of work, and I rage quit every book that I do. Thank you, my editor, for not letting me quit before I finish a book. What I would be really interested to hear them talk about with regards to my work is, in the second volume of the Weird Books in particular, a lot of shenanigans and issues happen following certain life choices by the main characters. And I have had similar feedback on the book that I had released earlier, Enemies, which was the 5th installment in the Berrybrook series, where I had received comments like, oh, if only Felicity had, made the right choices, she would have avoided all this trouble and all this drama. And I mean, these are kids learning how to problem solve and learning how to apply their limited frame of reference to the life events that they encounter and to lives that they're trying to forge for themselves. And I think it's unfair to judge them by the same metrics that I personally would apply to a grown-up. Now, on the other hand, the grown-ups in the books that I write, especially in the second volumes, I made a point of making sure that it's clear the grown-ups are making some choices as well that heavily contribute to whatever goes wrong in the book, especially the main villain. And I would love to hear that discussed by book clubs and what sort of insights they would have on that. It's a fascinating topic to me, and that would be really interesting to hear, I think. Libraries have been a huge part of my life ever since I was a kid. We had a good library at home. My parents always had books in the house. I read them all cover to cover several times. And I lived at the local library. I was always a reader. It's how I spent my time, was with my nose in a book. And our local library was very well stocked with everything. And then my father started taking me to an out of town library that had an even bigger stock of books that I could devour. I really think they shaped a big part of who I am as a writer just by having all that material available to me. I didn't like everything I read, but having experienced it made me grow into who I am today. My hobbies are very few and in between these days. I love watercolor. I don't get to really play around with it as much as I would like to. I love beading, uh, just making little things out of beads. I love sleeping. That's a hobby now with all the stuff, grown up stuff going on. And I really enjoy exploring towns where I end up visiting and just seeing the how people live. It's very interesting how we all adapt to our environments.